Thanks, Yuri. How you doing?
Doing good. All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, another edition of One Plus One, your place for inconvenient truth telling and myth busting. And it's another one of those all Canada editions. We are rejoined on the show by, sadly, former Green Party leadership candidate Dimitri Lascaris, who's also an anti-imperialist thinker and activist. He's an environmentalist. He still is a journalist and a truth-telling, myth-busting one at that. And we are so and yes, a member of Disruption Canada, and we are so honored that he's come to join us for a third time on One Plus One. Dimitri, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Yuri. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Always an honor to get the chance to speak to you. And just before I get into these questions, I just want to say, again, it's always an honor to speak to you. And I do have to say this. Thank you so much for the two times you actually came on One Plus One to talk about your leadership race. I doubt many politicians to come on the show, but the fact that you actually took time out of a very out of your very, very busy schedule to talk to a very small up and coming independent topical history program. It's again, real honor.
Well, it's very important to talk to independent journalists like yourself who are trying so hard in the face of massive opposition to tell the truth
exactly
about things like Western imperialism and many other subjects. So it's a pleasure for me to be able to support you in any way I can, and all independent journalists who are doing that wonderful work.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. And one of my best friends, a kindred spirit, she also really admired your campaign and a lot of the positions to questions I posed to you, like merging mental health care with a single-payer healthcare system, as well as how you defined eco-socialism and your anti-imperialism. So once again, thank you for that. And let's get to these questions because we are very pressed for time. So, Dimitri, me and Eve Angler, frequent guest on the show, and your friend, we talked about how sad we were that you did not get you didn't win the leadership for the Green Party of Canada. But before we get into that, and I do have to say that you consistently won second place, though, so not all hope is lost, and people shouldn't, like myself, my first reaction was to be all sort of doom and gloom and pessimistic about it. So just overall, what were your impressions on the campaign? And again, although you did not win, you did consistently place a second place. So that said, what were some of the goals that you accomplished in your campaign? Now that it's all done, because this was not just about hopefully getting the nomination. It was about something else. And yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
So, it was a 7-month campaign. There were 8 candidates, really very highly qualified people. There were, this former ICC, International Criminal Court lawyer with a graduate degree from Princeton, a lifelong lawyer from the Department of Justice, fluently bilingual, an astrophysicist, former Minister of Transportation and the Environment in Ontario, Canada's most populous province. So it was a really talented field. And, as you indicated, I finished second in that field of 8 candidates, and it went all the way to the 8th ballot. I was ahead on the 5th ballot, but ended up losing narrowly. On the 8th ballot, I had an excess of 45% of the votes. I don't regard that as a disappointing outcome, because from day one, our campaign was explicitly eco-socialist, and we knew that we were going to get it was absolutely clear that we were going to get quite unfair treatment from the corporate media, and we did. It was ridiculously unfair, frankly, but nothing surprising about that.
But also a lot of left-leaning media in Canada, which should have covered this more, unfortunately didn't cover this more, unless it was to interview you or Miss Haddad, Miriam Haddad.
Yeah, the independent media did a reasonably good job of covering the race. I think they could have paid more attention to it, some of the media outlets, but nonetheless, they were balanced in their coverage. But the corporate media, which has a much larger audience, was completely imbalanced. And, even right up until the very end, they were characterizing the eco-socialists. I wasn't the only eco-socialist candidate. There was also Miriam Haddad as, being hardliners and fringe and outliers on the political spectrum, when in fact, it's the centrists who are defending this suicidal status quo, who are the extremists. I said this from day one, and it's a message which really, I think, resonated with people. If you're defending a status quo that is leading us down the path of extinction, how do you get to call other people extremists? You should be looking in the mirror if you're looking for an extremist. And people got that, and so we were in a position to actually force the corporate media to talk about eco-socialism, which was something that wasn't even on their radar previously. I think that's a big victory. The fact we got so close is a big victory. I really didn't feel disappointed for 1 second.
Okay.
And I think we've started a conversation. I think that we have a movement now within the Green Party. I think we've shown, not just to the Green Party base, but also to other nominally center-left or centrist parties, that this is a conversation that you can have, that it isn't electoral suicide, that it actually gets people inspired and motivated. So I think the task for us now is to build upon what we started and not be discouraged by it.
That's a perfect segue to this because one of the things you wanted to accomplish was to shift the conversation to a much more to much more radical ones, because desperate times calls for desperate measures. And another thing that you accomplished, which we talked about once off the air, but I think we even talked about it on the air, was that your goal was to try to unite. I hate the term progressives, but to unite the left, which is the more left wing of the Liberal Party, broad church, as well as the disgruntled and disillusioned NDP, to come into a party with some existing eco-socialists, unite that, and I think it's safe to say from all the Zoom events I attended and all the debates I attended that I think you did accomplish that, right?
Yeah. We had many people coming over from the NDP who were fed up with the third way, Blairist, Clintonite approach to politics of the NDP leadership. We had people from the left wing, as you mentioned, the Liberal Party, who, by the way, a poll last year showed that 74% of this party, whose leadership is definitely center-right, if not outright right wing, have a positive view of
I'm reading the Trudeau formula right now, and exactly, it is a right-wing party, a rival oligarch party.
At the leadership level, but 3/4, according to a poll last year, 3/4 of Liberal supporters say that they have a positive view of socialism. So there's huge disconnect between Trudeau and his formula and the base of the Liberal Party. And then there were a bunch of people who just had no confidence at all in electoral politics. 8 million Canadians didn't even vote in the last election. Many of them just giving up because they feel disenfranchised. We had a lot of people who never had been engaged in electoral politics before come over to our campaign. So I think this is a demonstration of the power of honest, principled left-wing politics. We were able to say things. It wasn't just use of the concept of eco-socialism. We started a discussion about whether we should be in NATO. You can't even have that discussion in Parliament. No one has the courage to raise a question about participation in NATO. We started a discussion about putting caps on wealth, unheard of in the political mainstream in this country, about limiting the spread between executive compensation and worker compensation in corporations. Again, unheard of in the mainstream media. And yet we came so close to winning by championing these policies. So I think we've opened up a space for the kind of politics that people want to see. And we cannot stop now. We have to move forward. I cannot stress this enough. We have to build upon what we've started.
That's a perfect segue to that. That's a perfect segue to the third question I wanted to ask, which is the fact that you consistently got second place. Are you hopeful then that the Green Party of Canada is the vehicle for eco-socialism and anti-imperialism and speaking truth to power to Canadian myth-making, Canadian mythology, and rampant propaganda in Canada, that Canada is a force for good in the world, that we're the better version of the United States, that we're the nice cousins to Great Britain, and all that jazz?
Yeah, I would very much like to see the Green Party become that. If it had been, if I were the leader today, that's what it would become.
Yeah.
I will do everything I can to encourage Annamie Paul, the winner of the leadership contest, to move in that direction. But I don't think we should, those of us who have these views should focus strictly upon the Green Party. We should look at other parties too and demand, if you're not willing to come over to the Green Party, you feel wedded to the NDP or the Liberal Party, demand that the people who lead your party speak truth to power, and that they, honor the will of the base of the party, and that they be unapologetic in their analysis of Canada's, true role in the world. And Canada's role in the world is overwhelmingly negative. I hate to say that. I'm born and raised here, spent most of my life here. My kids, I raised them here. But the fact of the matter that Canada is extraordinarily responsible, disproportionately responsible for the climate emergency. It has slavishly followed a U.S. imperialistic and anti-democratic foreign policy for decades. It sells weapons and supports in other ways egregious human rights violators around the world. The government pursues an extractive orientation that is not only immensely damaging to our environment here, but is causing human rights abuses and environmental depredation in developing countries and the poorest countries in the world even. It's time for us as Canadians to really take a hard look at what our country actually is doing to contribute to the various crises and injustices in this world, and to demand better of our country, of our government, which does not speak for the majority of Canadians and never has. Yeah,
and evil did not start with Stephen Harper and an insincere Justin Trudeau. It goes back to Canada as a settler colonial regime, and then being a partner in crime to the British Empire, now a partner in crime to the Anglo-American Empire.
Yeah, listen, John A. Macdonald, Canada's first prime minister, was an out-and-out flagrant anti-Indigenous racist. I mean, this doesn't start with any of those people. It didn't even start in the post-World War II period. It goes back to the very founding of this settler colonial state. I don't think we should try to ascribe this, as you indicated, Yuri, to a particular party, a particular leader, a particular government. It is inherent in the nature of the governmental and economic system that was created at the founding of this country.
And now, are you? How can I say this question? How many of your supporters and Miriam Haddad's supporters do you know will continue to stay in the Green Party in the hopes that, okay, so we didn't win, but hey, our man Dimitri Lascaris did consistently get second place, and we're having way more radical conversations than if we were in the NDP. So how many of your supporters do you know are still going to stay in the Green Party and say, okay, if at first we don't succeed, we're going to continue to try that we hope that we get Dimitri to become leader again, or Miriam Haddad, or somebody that or somebody that has the same eco-socialism and anti-imperialism that the both of you have,
or move the current leader, the one who just won, in that direction.
Yeah.
Because that may be another alternative, and I'm hopeful that Annamie will move the party in that direction. We'll have to see. I'll do everything I can to assist her and encourage her in that regard. It's hard to answer your question, Yuri. I mean, I got inundated with messages, when the final result was known. I've responded to virtually all of them, and I would say that they were evenly split, were more or less evenly split. I don't know whether the messages I got are representative of how all our supporters feel. Like, we had over 10,000 votes.
Fair enough.
The sample that I saw, they were evenly split between stay in the party, keep working in a progressive direction, and let's get the hell out. This is a waste of time. Now, of the ones who expressed the latter point of view, I urge them to remain. And it took me a lot of time to work through all these messages and do that, because I think, as I said, we've started something, we should build upon it and not bail out now. That's exactly what the right wing would like to see. They'd like to see us become discouraged and leave the party in the hands of persons who may be considerably more centrist in orientation than I am. But of those people, the ones who initially said, I'm fed up, I want out, I'm going elsewhere, or becoming disengaged entirely from politics, Most of them, once I encouraged them to remain, said they would. A small percentage, a very small percentage, were irrevocably committed to quitting the party. They just completely gave up. So I think overall, my impression is that if we ask our supporters to remain, the vast majority of them will remain and are going to continue the fight within the Green Party. And I think that's great news.
Well, I hope that works out. And and that's a perfect segue to this question, which is now you can't speak for Miss Haddad, but any of her representatives or she herself are welcome to come on the show to talk about what the watermelon revolution does. So you can only speak for yourself then on this question, which is, will you try to run for parliament? And if the Greens don't make a big, green wave whenever the next general election comes, and if there is a leadership challenge, will you try to? Do you think you'll try to run for leadership of the party again, or do you think you might try to run for parliament?
Yeah, I was certainly, if and when the opportunity comes to run for leader, I very likely would want to do that. Who knows when that will be. As I say, right now I'm focused on the party as it exists today and moving the current leadership in a good direction. But yeah, if the opportunity arose, I probably would do it. And certainly I would, if the opportunity presents itself for me to run in the next election, I would very likely do that as well.
It would be wonderful if we had a voice of reason like you in Ottawa.
Thank you very much. I'll do whatever I reasonably can to get, to be in a position to shake Ottawa up, because it badly needs to be shaken up from its myopia. And so, yeah, that opportunity may present itself next year. I think there's a reasonably good chance that there will be a federal election called next year. Certainly, if not next year, the year after. So I'm getting ready for that. And, we, as I said, we're going to take this to the next level.
And that's going to be fantastic. Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. And I have to say this because we're running out of time. That when I was when I was following both your campaign and Miriam Haddad's campaign, and spent a lot of late nights watching all of the debates and seeing how you were doing, and also looking at other people's coverage. I remember I was saying to myself so many times, wow, I so wish I was Canadian. That way I can join the Green Party. I can vote for Dimitri. I can also put Miriam Haddad as second choice, because I was very inspired by both your campaigns. And it definitely, even though I'm still fairly pessimistic about the future, both your campaigns, actually really restored a lot of hope and humanity in me, especially with both Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders' campaign eviscerated, the Jeremy Corbyn project completely eviscerated. That in terms of Canadian politics, I think both you and Miss Haddad's campaign was really just it was a shot of hope that I think a lot of people needed. And it was also showing that, hey, it's not all doom and gloom, even if these establishment parties, maybe they are unreformable, but at least there still is a space for hopes of reasons and for a true eco-socialist, anti-imperialist movement to converge, which I think is what both you and Miss Haddad's campaign did.
Yeah, first of all, we don't have the luxury of being pessimistic. If people like us become pessimistic and give up, humanity's finished. We have to remain determined and work together and build upon our successes, such as they are. Secondly, transformative social change doesn't happen overnight. This is something Noam Chomsky talked about a lot. These are, you got to get down in the trenches and fight day after day. The greatest social transformations we've seen in the modern era in human history were not accomplished in the space of a few days, weeks, or even months. It took years, sometimes decades, even generations. So we can't lose heart. I personally am not discouraged by what happened to Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders, although I would have loved to, become respectively the Prime Minister of Britain and the President of the United States. They got quite close. I see that as a good thing. 10 years ago, we would have thought that people like them becoming the leaders of their respective countries was unthinkable. We would have thought 10 years ago that somebody like myself or Miriam becoming the leader of a party that's represented in Canada's parliament was unthinkable. Oh, it's become very, very thinkable. It's time for us to, to draw sustenance and encouragement from our successes rather than focus upon, the occasions on which we've fallen short of our ultimate goal.
And with the climate crisis, I think, even though, people power movements needs to really, take the wheels at the horn, because with the climate crisis, I think what you were alluding to is that with the climate crisis, we can't even afford to even just be pessimistic and just shut ourselves off, right?
Absolutely. That's number one, but there are others as well. We also have an even greater immediate threat is nuclear arsenals in this world, something barely talked about in the Western media.
Yeah.
So that too, that's a long-term struggle, and we have to fight tooth and nail for nuclear disarmament at the earliest possible moment. And then there are a series of other crises that less immediate and existential than those two. But no, that's what I mean when I can't afford to be pessimistic.
All righty. Well, Dimitri, I think. Actually, no. I still have some time with you. It's only 7:54. I think another question. I wanted to ask is will Team-Dimitri still have its website? Its website still up there in case people want to continue to actually read about some of the various policy positions, so that the Green Party can still be pushed into an explicit eco-socialist direction.
Probably. We're talking about that. We have to look at the cost of it. But yeah, I would very much like to preserve that website. Again,
and the YouTube channel as well.
That will definitely stay there. So Dimitri, yes, it's team-dimitri.ca. It'll definitely be there for a while. How much longer, I'm not sure, but I think we're probably going to try to keep it up indefinitely. And also, I have my own personal website, which is dimitrilascaris.org, where people can find out, see discussion about these issues in on another platform. And I just got a message from the next journalist who's supposed to be interviewing me, so I need to.
All right. Well, all right. Well, sorry, folks, that this couldn't be longer, but hey, Dimitri's a very busy man. So we were joined on this edition of 1+1 with Dimitri Lascaris. Dimitri, let's stay in touch. We'd love to have you back on, and best of luck to you and the movement and everything. And we look forward to best of luck, and we look forward to hopefully speaking to you again. All right.
Thanks, Yuri. Always a pleasure.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.